Today we're going to try some de-influencing. Let's talk about skincare products that you probably don't need. Hey everyone, welcome back to SheriApproved. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're new, welcome. And if you're already a part of the SheriApproved family, thank you so much for clicking on today's video. I hope that you've been enjoying the content that you've seen so far. But why not like this video right now? Subscribe if you haven't already. Share it with your friends. Leave a comment down below. Of course, always letting me know what you think about the video, as well as any content that you would like to see. I am probably the last person to talk about this topic. I am a skincare junkie. That is nothing that's hidden from you guys. I love buying and trying new skincare products because I do enjoy skincare, but also because I want to be able to give the best recommendations to my skincare consultation clients. And of course, we know that technology is always evolving, science, product formulations. So there is always something new on the market, and my eyes and ears are peeled, and I'm literally going to jump and buy to try. As a consumer, though, I could completely understand that can become very overwhelming, especially if you're now starting, or if you're probably wondering, why is Sherry using so many products? Or maybe you're somebody who's already into skincare, you have a routine, and you're probably more into minimalism, which is also fine. And then sometimes you might be wondering, maybe I should add this, add that, try something new, But there are quite a few categories of products that the majority of people may not actually need. Now, let me just put my disclaimer out there. If any of the things, the categories, the products that I'm going to talk about, you're using right now, you're happy with it, it works great for your skin, maybe an extra, it makes you feel happy, it's a part of your whole self-care routine, by all means, please continue, okay? I'm just talking about whether or not people really need these items. Do you need to spend on it? And of course, for all of these things, there are going to be categories of people for whom it's useful. And I will also discuss that, so let's get right into it. The first category is facial oils. Now, do I love a good facial oil? Absolutely. Do I have facial oils in my collection? Absolutely. Do I use facial oils? Yes, I do. But it is not something that's in my skincare routine on a consistent basis. If you are a minimalist and you don't want to have both a moisturizer and a facial oil, and it comes down to choosing, always choose the moisturizer. Facial oils are emollients. Their job is really to lock in the moisture that is already present on the skin and help to slow moisture loss. However, it's not going to do what a moisturizer is doing, and you actually need the moisturizer more than you actually need that facial oil. Now, I know we tend to use the terms hydrating and moisturize interchangeably, and in some cases it can, but oils are actually not for hydration. So the point is that your moisturizer is actually formulated to give you hydration. It's also probably going to have some emollients, especially in your heavier moisturizers that you use at nighttime. So in your moisturizer, you're more than likely getting a combination where there's a mix of oil and water ingredients in there. Now, given that a facial oil will actually help to seal in the moisture, you might think, well, Sherry, that's a good thing. And it is, especially for people with skin of color, because we are actually more prone to transepidermal water loss. But like I mentioned, if you have a really good night cream, especially, you probably won't need an additional facial oil. And that will be for the majority of people. However, there are a few categories of people, like I mentioned, for whom a facial oil might actually be very beneficial and useful for them to always have on hand. For example, let's say you have your skincare routine and you live in a country where you have these changing of the 4 seasons. You will notice that your skincare routine from summer has to be adapted to fall, and then has to be adapted to winter again, because as the temperatures drop and it gets colder, your skin is going to become more dehydrated. Now, of course, at that point, you could simply change your products and you could buy a thicker, more occlusive moisturizer. However, some people can actually adapt their skincare routine simply by purchasing a facial oil and using the moisturizer that they were accustomed to using. So in a case like that, you will apply your moisturizer first to hydrate and moisturize the skin, and then you will apply a couple drops of your facial oil on top to lock it in and seal it in, and therefore create a more occlusive barrier to seal that moisture into the skin. Perhaps you also use the gua sha and you do facial massage with a jade roller. Then having a facial oil, of course, is going to be very beneficial because that allows your devices to move very smoothly on the skin without tugging, without pulling. And of course, it's useful for doing things like lymphatic massage and so on. Who else needs an oil? Maybe you're somebody with very, very dry skin. Or maybe you're just somebody who likes to be extra and you want to have that additional step in your routine. by all means, go ahead. And then one of the other reasons why I want to mention where a facial oil might actually be useful in your skincare routine might be if it's a treatment oil. For example, I would have told you guys about the CosRx retinol oil. It has 0.5% retinol, and the formula actually allows a lot of people to use a higher strength retinol, but without the extra dryness that can come with higher strength retinol use. So a product like that is very, very useful, and that will become something that you're using quite regular in your skincare routine. So that's a little bit different from the general category of facial oils that I'm referring to. But I wanted to mention it in case you're somebody that's probably using a treatment facial oil and you're probably saying, well, wait, Sherry is saying that I actually don't need that. That particular product might be critical in your skincare routine. But for John Public, given what I just explained, facial oil is not really necessary for most people. The next one is sunscreen with a very high SPF protection. And you're going to be like, what did you just say? Yes, because we know the higher the SPF, the higher the protection from UV radiation, right? But here's where it gets interesting. When we start to go above SPF 50, the additional protection is so marginal that it's negligible. So looking at something that's, let's say, SPF 70, SPF 100, SPF 120, and some people look at that and be like, no, I absolutely have to have that. I cannot use an SPF 50 product. The protection is so marginal, you could absolutely do without that. A lot of people look for these like very high numbers when it comes to SPF protection because they're thinking, for example, that an SPF 100 product is giving you double the protection of SPF 50, but that's actually not the case. And what also tends to happen is that this can give some people a false sense of security, like a free ticket to stay in the sun longer, to not apply as much, to not reapply. But the thing about it is, to get that SPF 100 protection, you actually still need to apply your approximate quarter teaspoon of product. A lot of people think that, okay, I could buy SPF 100 and I could use less product and get maybe SPF 50 protection. Like, guys, it doesn't work like this. SPF is one of the most scientifically measured parts of skincare, and you do not want to play with your application and use. As many of you will know, it is common knowledge that dermatologists will recommend that you use at least SPF 30 on a daily basis. For me personally, I try not to go below SPF 45. Most of my sunscreens are SPF 50, SPF 50 plus, and that gives you about 98% protection from UV radiation. I'm just saying that when you're going sunscreen shopping, you know, you're supposed to have the things that you're looking for on the label to know what type of product you're getting. But honestly, I do have people that come to me and be like, oh, only SPF 50. What about SPF 75 or 100? Like, that's what I really want to use. And you absolutely do not need those products. So you do not need to make that a marker when choosing your sunscreen. It's important for you to know that even if you choose to use SPF 100, you need to reapply if you've been in water, if you've been in sweating, according to the directions on the tube, which will more than likely tell you to reapply every 80 minutes or so if you've been in water, or every 2 hours if you've been in direct UV exposure. So it's really not changing the game. It's not changing the amount. It's not changing how often you need to reapply. So you really need to think about if probably paying the extra or striving to get the extra or trying to deal with a formula that you probably don't like with the higher SPF is worth it for you. The next category is expensive cleansers. I mean, okay, listen. We deserve to have a luxury experience. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have a luxury experience. Treat yourself if you can afford it. If you can afford to spend $50, $60 or more on the cleansing step part of your routine, by all means, go ahead. But does the majority of people need an expensive cleanser? You absolutely do not. Perhaps you're getting it on sale for Black Friday and you want to try it because you're getting a huge discount off. By all means, buy it. That's what I do. But let's kind of break this down. It might be elementary to some of you, but for many others, they still associate more expensive skincare with being better, and it's not necessarily so. But we're talking about specifically with cleansing. Now, you guys know that cleansing is a foundational step of a great skincare routine. And it's also important to note that most of the substances that you actually want to break down and get off your face is actually not water soluble. So I know there's like this huge trend where people are just using water to cleanse their skin. I could completely understand that in the morning. Perhaps you probably wasn't sweating at night. It's just your skincare from the night before, and splashing water and so on works for you because that helps to preserve the lipids on your skin in the morning. That's fine. But I want you to understand that if you need to cleanse your skin, Water alone is not going to remove the things off your skin because most of it is not water soluble. Hence the need for a cleanser. But while we need a cleanser, all you need to make sure is that your cleanser is well formulated to not be probably too high pH, that it's not going to strip your skin, that it's going to cleanse your skin well, that your skin feels comfortable after, that you enjoy the experience. Perhaps you like to have a fragrance, perhaps you want fragrance free. And of course, you want to make sure that the cleanser is applicable to your skin type. Once you actually check all those boxes, you can find those very, very affordably. And the thing about the cleanser is that it's going to stay on your skin 1 minute, 2 minutes. For most people, not even more than 20 seconds. And you spend a lot of money and you're literally washing away all that goodness down the drain. I much rather spend money and leave on products like maybe serums and so on, or even masks that are treatment masks and they are meant to work in that way. I much rather spend the extra there than spending for a luxury cleanser. And as we're talking about cleansers, the next item flows right in, and that's that most people, the majority of people, actually don't need a cleansing device. Now, this might sound very hypocritical from me, given that I have credited the use of the Clarisonic to helping me with my acne treatment and my acne routine that I had to develop several years ago. And that really helped my skin. And that was true. But when I look back at that, I also realized that at that time, I was now probably learning as well about the double cleanse method. And I probably wasn't cleansing my skin properly, meaning that I wasn't massaging my water-based cleanser on my skin at least 30 to 60 seconds to make sure that I really cleanse my skin well. And I also wasn't using the double cleanse method as much to break down everything at the end of the day. So of course, bringing in the device completely took my skincare game to another level because my skin was being properly cleansed. The truth is, there are people who have it in their routine and they probably use it a couple times a week, and that's fine. The point is that the majority of people, you actually do not need one of these devices if you're doing the double cleanse method. If you're applying your water-based cleanser and you're massaging it for the time that you need to, your skin will actually be cleansed well. In fact, what a lot of people don't realize is that using these cleansing devices, especially things that has like the brushes that we've been accustomed to with Clarisonic, for example, can actually create issues. Number one, now if I have to use anything, I prefer to use one of the devices that has a silicone brush head. Those are way more hygienic and much easier to clean and keep clean from bacteria. The ones with the regular like bristle brush heads like the Clarisonic, and of course they would have advised you to change it ever so often, every couple months. I can't remember how often right now, but they would have done that because those bristles and so on, even though you try to clean it every time, put it to dry, they will harbor bacteria much more easily than the silicone brush heads would. The other thing is that when I was actually using the Clarisonic, I used to use the most gentle brush head. I used to see some people like buying the exfoliating ones and the very stiff ones, and I'm like, oh my god, I am just feeling like all my skin will come off if I use something like that, because this is one of the issues that we actually have with cleansing devices. It can very easily lead to over exfoliation, damage of your skin barrier, removal of the lipids that you actually need on your skin to protect and have a healthy skin barrier. And then if you're not careful, meaning that you're somebody like me, probably using one of those devices to kind of help with your whole cleanse in an acne routine, you could end up spreading bacteria on your face, especially if you don't know what you're doing, the type that you're using, how often you should be doing it, etc, etc, etc. So if you do have one of these devices, great. But if you're somebody that was probably thinking about purchasing it, I want you to think again, because it's not actually something that you really need to have an effective cleanse. The next one is multiple exfoliants. I don't know how many times I have in discussions with people and I'm looking at their routines, like probably they're not even using sunscreen, they don't have maybe a hydrating or a calming serum in their routine, but they have like 3 or 4 or even 5 different types of exfoliating products in their routine, and that's a recipe for disaster. Of course, you guys know exfoliation is really important, especially as you get older, but you probably only need maybe 1, max 2 different types of exfoliants in your routine, depending on what you're probably doing, depending on your skin type, your skin condition, what you're actually treating. That's obviously going to determine what you choose and how you use it. I cannot stress this enough, that especially for us people with skin of color, the dangers of over exfoliation and the resultant hyperpigmentation, Trust me, you don't want to have to deal with it. So let me give you some examples of how you could probably use different exfoliants in your routine without buying out the whole store. Let's say you have sensitive skin, but you definitely still do need some exfoliation. Then you can go for things like PHAs or more gentle, larger molecule chemical exfoliants. And you can use this probably in a gentle toner, something that is even gentle enough that you can even do daily. Depending on the percentage, of course, that's going to dictate whether it's a daily toner, whether it's something that you could use a couple times per week. And perhaps let's say that you're using something that's so gentle that you can actually use it daily, and you probably want to bring in something else. You can probably get a gentle exfoliating mask that you could supplement in your routine probably 1 or 2 times per week. Let's say you have more resilient skin, but you're looking at aging skin issues. You can actually go for something that's higher strength, maybe a higher strength like glycolic acid or a higher strength lactic acid that you have in your rotation in your skincare routine. And once you're actually using a higher strength serum like that, you don't necessarily need an exfoliating toner or another exfoliant in your routine as well. Let's say you're probably somebody that's newer to exfoliants, but you probably don't have sensitive skin. You can get started with a 5% glycolic acid toner, which most people tend to tolerate really well. You could start something like that every other night, and that should work fine for you. Adjust frequency based on how your skin tolerates it. But again, if you're doing a 5% glycolic acid every other night, that is usually enough exfoliation for the majority of people. But let's say that you're somebody like me and you've been working on probably increasing the frequency of your retinoid use, especially in your nighttime skincare routine. And of course, using a high strength exfoliant with a retinoid that you're probably increasing frequency or increasing strength makes the perfect pot to create irritation. And of course, you want to avoid that. So let's say you're working on increasing that retinoid frequency, but you still want to be able to get your exfoliation in. Then something like a high strength peel that you could probably do once a month, twice a month, once a week if you have extremely resilient skin is also possible, and it's a good way to get your exfoliation in, but still also do your retinoid almost every night. Now, of course, there are way more tips that I can share with you guys, but I hope that these 5 that I shared with you today is helpful, could help you kind of reduce what you have in your cart, reevaluate your skincare routine, reevaluate some of the things that you're probably thinking about, and decide whether or not you really need it, save you some dollars where you need to save it, and probably put those dollars where you actually need to invest it in your skincare routine. I would love to hear in the comments down below what items or what skincare devices or skincare products that a lot of people love that is absolutely not necessary for you or that you don't purchase. I'd love to hear about it in the comments down below. Remember to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in another video soon. Take care. Bye.